Suburban Prepper. How you doing? We're going to do our drive. Maybe get 200 viewers today. Who knows? So I was watching some of my thermal videos that I make, and I want to clear up some misperceptions that if someone's ever shot or used a thermal scope before, what they're used for. A thermal scope technically is not a night vision device. It can be used during the day. A great example is if someone's camouflaged up, that's great. You can't see them with a binocular or your eye. It's pretty hard to hide a heat signature. And a thermal scope is great at that. I mean, especially if someone's camouflaged out to 200 yards and they're not moving around much, it's pretty hard to see them. Let's be honest, okay? Whereas even my weaker 320 FLIR PTS 233, I believe it's a 320 scope. It can see definitely a human heat signature out at 200 yards easily. The 640 that I own, even more so. Now, I just want to go over the kind of thermal devices that I do own and what their uses are for, okay? So I own a Halo LR long-range thermal scope. It's made by Envision, and it's a beautiful scope. And the great thing about this scope is you can plug it into a battery pack to use it. And it's mesmerizing, the color that you can get and the clarity of picking up a heat object. So unless your body and the ground around you is exactly the same temperature, you're going to stand out in the heat. Okay? There's just no getting around to it. So thermal scopes are not night vision scopes. Now, I'm not going to say, I would never tell you to go look at the sun with the thermal scope. I mean, you don't put a camera to the sun anyway. All right? That's just not something you do. You don't want to destroy your $7,000 scope. Now, the prices of, like what I have is a 640. That I was just checking them out now. They've gone down to like $3,000, $2,000 in some cases. So the prices have gone down dramatically. With that same quality, probably better quality. But at what point are you just satisfied with what you have, but you don't need to upgrade to something better? I mean, would it be nice to do a live stream from your scope to your YouTube page? Sure, it would be. Am I going to buy another scope to do it? No. But thermal scopes are pretty good. The first thermal scope that I ever bought, okay, was a FLIR PTS 233. And it's a 320 scope. That's the strength of the how it looks. And they all come with, different color markings. Like I like black and white. Some people like the minutia colors, but I like to keep it simple. Or I like white on black. I mean, either way. And sometimes I like to go with the psychedelic colors too on my scope. So those are my two thermal scopes. And the way you zero them, obviously if they're a scope and they go on a rifle, then they're meant to be used to be shot. But you mount them on a rifle. And just like any other device or any other scope, you want to get a general zero, okay? But you're trying to pick up a heat signature. So the way to do that is line up your, take the bolt carrier group out, or the bolt out, line up the bolt with the target, and we'll go over what the target's going to be here in a minute, okay? You line up the target with the bolt, and then you line up the scope with the target. And you make them both match together. Now, obviously, with a digital thermal device, it's okay. Adjustments. It's basically you're zeroing anyway. You would zero. Anything else, you're just doing it by pushing buttons, and the reticule line moves to where you need it to move. Then it sets. Pretty much they all do that. So the great thing is, for a target, it could be a simple piece of aluminum foil outside, and that aluminum foil gets hotter than the objects around it, and that's what you aim for. Now your eye, you look through the scope, you look through the barrel at the aluminum, and that's how you get a good zero, your initial zero. Okay, a mechanic, if it were, I don't even know if it's a mechanical zero, but you're lining the scope up, and you're lining the barrel up. And I did this last week when I was on vacation with my 50 cal and my 300 Win Mag, where I just lined up a scope, and I lined up the barrel. But when I was lining it up, I found I was shooting too high, so I had to go down on my 300 Win Mag, and I had to adjust it. But it definitely got it on paper, and it was off by about 15 inches at first. So I had to definitely dial it way down. And you could do the same with a thermal scope. So the way that you could take a thermal scope to the gun range, any gun range, and use it. And instead of hanging paper targets up, which you can, of course, and you could hang up an aluminum target and zero it that way or shoot that way. And any amount of heat in that thermal aluminum foil is going to pick up the heat, and you'll see it. It'll be your target. There's a little bit of work involved, but it's still doable. It's a contrast of heat. That's all the thermal is. So FLIR no longer makes scopes for the everyday person. They went into the scopes for everyday people. I guess it's considered commercial scopes because they don't make commercial scopes anymore. They make scopes for law enforcement and military. So they're basically part of the government contractors now. They always have been. Back in the day, on my Black Hawk and Chinooks, we had FLIR thermals on the bottom of our helicopters. It was really distinctive back then. And they were fun to look at when we were flying. And the pilots would help the pilots with navigation and stuff. The forward-looking infrared, that's what FLIR stands for. Okay. Now they have thermals that do a lot of different stuff. It's not just forward-looking. But anyway, my next scope that I own, I mentioned it earlier, is the Halo LR long range. It's an Envision Halo LR. They're so fancy that when you buy a scope, they give you a coin. A nice coin, like a military coin. Not that I would give it away to anybody, but I keep the coin still in its case. It's a bulky scope, but I'm sure they streamlined them now more. It's not bulky as like a Gen 1 scope on an M16 rifle back in the old days. It's not. It's just a little bit bulkier. About the same size as a analog night vision scope. But anyway, my FLIR PTS LR, it's a beautiful scope. I mean, back in 2017, 2018, that was a top technology. I mean, and that's almost 8 years later. And they've come out with 1280 power. That's like the imaging. And so that's like twice the amount of imaging. So my 640 has twice the amount of imaging better than my 320, if that makes sense. Saw these numbers of 320. I don't know why they pick them like that, but they do. And so, what rifles can you shoot with them? Honestly, any of them. My rifles are, even my 50 cal, the recoil on it's not so bad that it would make a difference. And you have that scope on a good mount, and it won't make any difference what you shoot it on. I mean, it was meant to be rugged. Unlike how, you know how the PVS 14s come with an attachment to put on your rifle, so you can look through the PVS 14 and look through your rifle scope, or vice versa. And basically, it becomes an attachment to your scope. I would never put a PVS 14 next to on an AR-15 rifle. I guess, I mean, the military probably has them that way and they can be used like that, but nothing, I would not put it on anything larger than a 223. I don't know how much rattling a PVS 14 could take. And I own 2 PVS 14s, okay? But I would not do that like that. So, go back to we're talking about thermals today, okay, folks? Thermal scopes. So obviously if you're looking through the woods, and inside the woods, it's a lot cooler, and there's still, apertures, you can make out a warm body in the woods that you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. It doesn't have any X-ray vision. It doesn't see through walls. I don't know of any technology that does. I mean, obviously X-rays can see through walls because it's X-ray. It's a type of radiation like that. But as far as using it constantly, no. And the thing with thermal is you can't see through glass. Okay? It reflects right back at you. So, and then some people say, well, you can use that glass as a shield. Well, the problem is you become a target right away if you're wearing something glassy, because you still stand out from the rest of the environment. You stand out as something glassy looking that doesn't reflect a image back. Now, and that's why you never use a thermal scope to drive a vehicle. You're not going to see anything with it. Oh, here's a rubber ducky. Another rubber ducky civilian. Anyway. And then the thermal scopes, they're not good at picking up 3 dimensions. They pick up a heat signature. And you can have 3 dimensions in it. But let's say that there's a gully and you're walking and you're just using thermal and there isn't much variance in the heat. You're not going to tell the difference in that little ditch that you've just fell in and broke your ankle. So thermal scopes were not meant to be used for patrolling. They're meant to be used for reconnaissance and pew-pew. Okay? So my next scope that I bought is called it's another product by FLIR. And I like them. I like FLIR products. They make good scopes, but they don't make them anymore for the commercial, the average Joe, okay? It's called the FLIR Breach. And it's a scope that can be mounted on a helmet, and I have it mounted for a helmet. And it's used for scanning, obviously. It's not meant to be weapon mounted, and it's not set up for that. There's no reticule or anything to shoot with it. But it's a fancy way to have a scope that you can look through your helmet. And it comes with, like I have it attached to my helmet device. You can see, but it's not meant for patrolling, okay? Now, something that I tried a couple of years ago that was not the smartest thing to do was to use the PVS-14 in one eye and to use the FLIR Breach in the other. And looking through both of them, it was a cheap way, well, not so cheap, a way of pretending I had night vision thermal fusion, which is a combination of analog night vision and thermal. But all it ended up, and I tried different angles. It just gave me a massive headache. My eyes were not meant to look at 2 completely different things like that. So, yeah, you can have one side be the thermal FLIR Breach, the other side be a PVS-14, but don't look through both of them at the same time. All you're going to do is get a headache. And the FLIR Breach, it does record. All these things record now. I don't know how you configure it to transmit onto YouTube or something. I'm sure there's some technology that aftermarket technology for that. I haven't done it yet. So when the FLIR Breach came out, that was a game changer. Having a helmet mounted device that was short enough that didn't make you look like Pinocchio. Okay? Because there are other monoculars or binoculars that are thermal, but they're not helmet mounted. And it's all changed now. There's different companies that make them now, the ones that are helmet mounted. But back in the day, that was it. And it was awesome. Back in the day, like 2016, 2017, 2018, not that far back in the day. So this guy, okay, this guy's not trying to cuss. So conversely, I'm going to talk about my final thermal device that I have. It's called the clip-on thermal imager, or CODI. And I got mine used from a guy on eBay. And yeah, I took a chance, but I ended up getting a great deal for this device. And it was the first line clip-on thermal imager. And what it does is it clips on to your PVS 14 or your PVS 7. And it takes an image of what you're looking at, but it superimposes it onto the PVS 14 or PVS 7. So it gives you a little circle of thermal and analog night vision at the same time. And that's called fusion vision. And they do vision scopes, okay? And they are commercially available. Or monoculars, I should say. But the price, $20,000, $40,000, way out of my league. So that's not something I'm going to buy. What's that good for? Well, if you're walking around with your thermal and your analog, it gives you more enhanced, you can see more heat signatures than otherwise. And I make videos of on a hot day when your body's hot and it's cool outside and you're walking outside and you have a heat signature of your feet. You pick that up with the CODI thermal. And my dog peeing in the grass, and you look at the pee spot because of the heat from the pee versus the ground. You pick that up with a CODI. It wasn't meant to be shot. But yeah, that's so yeah, they have fusion thermals now where it's a combination of analog night vision and a fusion technology. I'm sure they have them on scopes. I'm sure they have them on helmets. But those are government contracts. Expensive. And they're commercially available. When I say commercially, it means an average Joe can get it. So, you know, it's against the law to ship a thermal or a analog night vision device overseas. Okay, even though most of the scopes are made in China or Hong Kong or Japan, you're not supposed to ship them back overseas to anyone. I gotta yawn, I'm sorry. Fear of these other nations getting this technology, although it's a stupid law. I keep mentioning analog night vision, okay? And like analog is supposedly, you know, when you think of it, like an analog TV, it's like the old school back again. Oop, there it is. But yeah, so that's like your first, second, and third generation night vision. Okay. The technology really hasn't changed much for analog night vision. Right? It gets the photons in the body of the sky and it lights up the light. And if there isn't enough light, you can turn on an IR light, infrared, and it basically shines the area that you want to look at. So my PVS 14s, you can turn the IR on to infrared, and it makes it brighter. But guess what? You just gave away your position, because anybody that's wearing night vision will see your position now, because there's IR light. Conversely, the digital scopes that are available, or digital night vision, that don't use the analog system, which are a lot cheaper. The digital ones are a lot cheaper because it's basically a TV camera. You shine the IR light. You have to use an IR light to see. Versus, oh boy. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of digital night vision. Some people just call them night vision, but to me, it's truly not. It's digital night vision. I got my drink here, and I forgot to open it. I'm like yawning and shit. It's just some ginger ale, folks. I woke up at 5:30 this morning. My back had been killing me, so I did some stretches for a while. Medicine, some pain patches on, basically some Ben Gay pain patches, and that seems to help. So what I would like to do is take my scopes out and zero and record it while I'm zero. Video like that. But it's not going to be as fancy or as easy. Anyway, so that's the gist of thermal scopes. And there's a component about it called the microns. I'm not a scope, but the smaller the number of the microns, the better. I was just looking at some stuff this morning. I did. Athlon Optics now has thermal rifle scopes. They're pretty well priced. So in my backyard, I found 2 more bees. We got most of them. Just 2 bees that are left from this morning, and I just didn't do anything about them, considering there was a swarm that I had to get rid of with a nest, and the guy came in and did that. It's a video. Now, if this guy is truly an emergency vehicle, he can go around me. There's a guy with a yellow light and white lights on. I don't know if what's he responding to, but if it's truly an emergency, he could just drive around. I don't know. I don't know the laws about colorful siren lights. He's turning anyway. Oh, I know who that is. It's the sprayer guy. The guy that sprays to kill the bugs. That makes sense. I got stuck behind one of those a couple weeks ago, and I got real short of breath. So now let's talk about analog night vision, okay? Analog is your traditional night vision. That's the one where you have the green or the white phosphor image. Now I have two Gen 3 PVS 14s. I have one Gen 3 PVS 7. The 14s are the single mounted ones, okay? With one camera, basically, and one little thing to look through. The PVS 7 is both of your eyes are concentrated on one little camera that sticks out. There's Gen 1, which is like old school night vision. And the imaging doesn't last as long. The device doesn't last as long at Gen 1. And you're talking like thousands of hours, okay? Gen 2, there's an improvement in the imaging and the camera. The thermal imaging, not thermal, the analog imaging lasts longer. You'll see some companies sell Gen 2 night vision at a cheap price compared to what you're usually, but you're getting a Gen 2 product, so it's not going to last as long as the Gen 3. And Gen 3 that's the top of the line digital or analog night vision. I have a Gen 1 device, but I don't really use it. It's for what I used it for, just like looking around and playing around. It works fine, but it was a monocular, helmet-mounted monocular. Okay. The cheapest ones, monoculars like that, are $5,000 now, at least the cheapest for Gen 3. And you can piecemeal one together. But what I have is a set for my two PVS 14s, and it becomes I should say binocular, because I look through both of them. But the son of a bitch is heavy because it's got its battery system. It's two PVS 14s set up together, and then on top of that, I have my clip-on thermal imager on one of the PVS 14s. And the helmet, it's a lightweight helmet, but wearing a helmet's still heavy. It's not like it's an old Kevlar helmet. Why do I have a helmet? I'm not going into combat anywhere. It's fun to have. I've got some other ways to mount my PVS 14 or my thermal or anything. One is the head attachment, which is real ugly looking. The other is a skull device where it just goes to your face and you look through it. And Some people just get a bicycle type of helmet, and they make them look like fancy military helmets, but they're really just not. Just to have the being able to use it to look through. Other applications for the, I call it analog night vision, okay? Because well, you can have them mounted on a weapon system, and they have a reticule sighted in already, or in, and you can sight it in just like any other reticule. I don't own one of those. I didn't see the point in it. Because to me, a thermal scope is 10 times better than a analog rifle scope. Because if somebody's camouflaged at night with the night vision, they're going to look camouflaged at night, same way they would during the day. Whereas if you have a thermal, you can't camouflage heat. That makes sense, folks? Telling you what, my back is killing me today. I try to get it to pop, and I can't. Get to work, I'll probably get it to pop. There's a special chair I sit down on, and it just has the right angle, and it feels so much better after that. Would I ever buy a analog night vision rifle scope? I don't see the sense in it for me. Everybody has their own thing. You know, you do you. But yeah, you can drive with analog night vision. It gives you 3 dimensions. You can see the ditch in the road and everything else. And you can look through glass, obviously, with analog night vision. You can't look through walls. Okay, there was a movie that came out in 1990 called Navy SEALs. And the sniper guy had a 50 cal. But he switched it, the scope, from analog to thermal. And suddenly he can look through the wall and see what the dude was doing. And he just shot through the wall with a 50 cal weapon, which, and that wall was pretty thick. I don't think that the 50 cal would have penetrated all the way through 18 inches of cement, basically. And wood, it'll go through 18 inches. But it was so fake. And it had that dude in it from 2.5 Men, the baseball movies. And he started off acting in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. His dad was in Apocalypse Now. And he got HIV positive now. But anyway, he was in that movie. He was a jerk in that movie, too. Can't remember the guy's name. But anyway, it was such a fake movie. Like, oh, do we have that technology? Does the SEAL teams have it? No. Hell, I don't know what technology they have now, but in 1990, no. Hell, I remember in Desert Storm, SF teams were still using Gen 3 rifle scopes, or Gen 1 rifle scopes. This big ass rifle scope mounted on a M16. And he was carrying it around like he was the shizzle. Okay, because he was. 1990, 1991, Desert Storm. That was great for doing night operations on the ground, obviously. That's all I'll say about that. But now that technology is so it's not even used anymore. Oh, I'm here at work. Hey, how you doing? And people are getting pissed off because there's cars that I can't turn into traffic and get hit. Everyone gets pissed off nowadays. I really don't. But I will. I'll drink my drink and talk for a few minutes. I got 6 minutes before I gotta go. So basically, that's everything I know about night vision and thermal. I mean, I'd have to look up the stuff to be technical. And I'm not, my name's not Technical Prepper. It's called Suburban Prepper. What applications does it have for me? Well, it's mostly recreational, definitely defensive, with a touch of paranoia. I got a high and tight haircut. Those days are over, son. Anyway. Yeah, I am going to do a video about shooting my thermal scopes. It's going to be a daytime video because you can use them during the day, like I mentioned. I got so much work I got to do today. I'm working through lunch, not even getting a lunch break. And I work late after work, but it was worth it for my vacation. And I'll get all the work done. Anyway, this is Suburban Prepper. Have a good day. Out. God bless everyone.